What is up? So I already made a video about how to tattoo bold lines, which I believe to help out a ton of you out there. So I'm going to go on the other side of things and teach you how to tattoo a super thin line. Today what I'm going to be using is a bug pin 5-round liner. So what that means is it's going to run about like a 3 regular liner. I'm going to break down exactly what you would want to use as a machine whenever you are using liners this thin and exactly how to go about doing it. And if it is your first time here, I am Brandon from Tattooing 101. Welcome to this video, and make sure you're liking and subscribing down below and hitting the little bell notification so you can be updated on all the new videos we make each week. So a lot of questions I get are, what is the difference between tattooing a super thin liner or a huge liner? And there is quite a bit that goes into doing each. So when I'm using my really big liners, what I'm going to do is have a really long stroke, using a very powerful machine, usually one without any give, so it has the oomph to push that into the skin. It's exactly different when I'm tattooing with really thin lines, because it's very, very easy to put these little needles into the skin, so you don't need a lot of power to do so. If you have too much power, the problem is going to be like slicing the skin. It's almost going to be like a razor blade going in there because it's going into the skin super easy, and it could cause complications with actually slicing the skin. So that's the main reason I'm making this video, because I've had a couple people ask about how exactly to do that. They've had issues with using really tiny liners. So I'm going to show you exactly what I do to create clean lines with a super small liner. Okay, let's get into tattooing this flower design. So I chose something dainty and delicate because these are really popular nowadays with, females getting them, or even on males getting like really tiny spiders with some spider web, things like that. It's a style that's really in, so I wanted to pick something that you might actually be tattooing in the future. So with this, there's a couple things. You want to make sure that you are checking your cartridge to make sure there's no wiggle in the actual needle when you're running your machine. So if you're using cheap cartridges, I put a little ink on there so you'd be able to clearly see exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the wiggle. So with this one, I can see that there's no wiggling around. It's actually perfect when it comes to the actual needle coming out and back in. There's no wiggling back and forth. Why you check that is because if there's any wiggle at all and you go to tattoo, it's going to create all sorts of little inconsistencies with your line. Along with that, you want to make sure that you are setting yourself up for 3 points of contact. So I use my stretching hand, and I'll put down, even though I don't have to stretch, I'll put it down right here. And then put my tattooing hand down on the fake skin and the table. That's 2, and then I'll tuck my elbow in. So what that's doing is you can see that I'm way more stable than just like trying to hover over here. You can see I'm shaking a little bit, but like this, there is no shaking at all. And then I use these 2 fingers as my template for my depth control. So I put these down and use them to know exactly the right depth I want to go into this. Awesome, so let's start on this design. Put some Vaseline down on the fake skin so it will clean up the ink. Anytime you're dipping, you want to make sure you're just touching your paper towel to get any residual ink out of the tube so it doesn't smear everywhere when you're tattooing. And let's start this first line. You can see that I'm going to keep a steady pace. I don't want to stop in one area too long because it'll really tear up this fake skin and actual human skin. So we're just keeping a steady pace going through here and doing all of the line work. So with this, we're not pressing super heavy like we would be, doing shading or anything like that, or, we're not pressing hardly at all, like even lighter than what you would be doing line work on a regular needle. So we're just lightly pressing into the fake skin and just pulling our line very steadily. Because with most of these styles, you don't want it to be overpowering, so we're doing everything very light so it gives that effect whenever we're done. And just going through here and doing our line work. Yeah, so the biggest thing whenever you are using these really small liners would definitely be being able to control your actual needle. So making sure that you're having 3 points of contact is a huge deal when it comes to tattooing these things. Okay, now that we're done with most of the outline, what we're going to do is go in and do all the detail. So in the middle of this standing line right here, what we're going to do is add a little bit of shading with this liner. So we're not going in with a mag. On these style of tattoos, we're pretty much just sticking with a liner and just creating everything we need with it. So we're just going to go through here and do the middle, just with like some whip shading or stipple shading, and just adding a little middle to this flower without it being overpowering. We don't want to just blast a line in there because we want it very dainty and light. So just working, building up some tones in there to make it look like the middle of the flower. Right like that. I'm going to add a little bit of shading to these flowers as well. So what I'm doing is just putting the needle lightly into the skin and just kind of whipping it out, kind of how you would with a traditional style tattoo, but instead we're using a very, very tiny liner. We also don't want to go too dark with this. We want to keep everything really light. And we'll go into the leaves and just whip out some shading with them as well. And this is the effect we want to get. So it's very light line work, not a ton of shading. When this heals up, it's going to be really light, not overpowering, which is why, I do a lot of flowers and stuff like this, because flowers don't need to be, super powerful or anything like that. You can do them on the wrist and they're very light and dainty, or behind the ear, things like that. But these are the steps of how I create line work with a really, really tiny liner. So these are the steps I take in order to make a clean tattoo with very, very small, tiny lines in it. I hope this was able to help you guys out. And if you like content like this, make sure you like and subscribe down below so you can keep updated with all new videos we come out with each week. As always, thank you guys for your time, and I hope to see you on the next video.